Welcome to the Take a Mulligan podcast with your hosts, Brian and Kenny Mulligan. We hope to encourage you not to quit and keep going. If you're at that place where you just want to stop and give up, don't. Second chances can happen. Try again and take a mulligan.
Hey, welcome back to the Take a Mulligan podcast, and we are excited because it's the Mulligan brothers again. So we're glad to have Sean and Barry on here again, and we thought we'd do a special episode since this week. Oh my goodness, it's like right here. We are in Halloween week, and so we thought we'd start off by talking about some of the Halloween stuff that we grew up with as kids, and then maybe get into it as adults, and then maybe get into some of the maybe stuff behind the scenes of what Halloween really is all about, and then how we should respond. So all of us, just give some of you listeners an idea. What are we, 13 years span, right? Because Barry, you're 3 years older than me, and then
yeah, Barry
Sean,
keeps getting older than me, but I don't think I'm changing, so I'm not sure what it was.
It's amazing how that works.
So between Barry and Brian, who's the youngest, there's a 13-year age gap. So like some of us are in high school and you guys are still in diapers. Like that's just to give you perspective. So Halloween was different for us as kids. But so what do you guys remember? I don't know. What do you remember growing up as kids and Halloween?
The plastic mask costume. That's probably the first thing I remember.
Oh my
Those
goodness.
terrible
I totally
plastic
forgot
masks
about those
with
things.
the eye cutouts and the mouth cut out. You could barely breathe. You're sweating inside.
The rubber band thing
That was
tangle in your hair.
Yeah, and it would break halfway through the night, you know.
Oh, and there's elastic bands that would kill the back of your head.
What's the first costume you remember?
Wow, that's a good question. Oh,
Okay,
Did we do Batman and Robin once, bro?
we probably
That
were
sounds
in those
familiar.
terrible plastic masks. Yeah,
Yeah.
and the plastic little
you know,
overlay thing.
Barry and I one year were dressed up as a king and the page.
Let me guess you know the
Because
page.
the page, I don't know if anybody knows what a page is. He's the person in the kingdom that, I don't know, brings the message or something. I don't know. He was called a page, right? And the reason we were dressed up that way is because we used to do backyard carnivals. And our older sister Patty would write plays, and we would act out these plays for all these people who are coming to our carnival, and they would pay 10 cents to come down the basement to watch our little play. And we did a play about, I don't know, what was it?
One was the King's Cream Puff.
The king. That's what I mean. Yeah, I remember that. Okay, the cream puff. Yeah.
This is
that?
news to
I
me.
only remember that because I was the king and I had to eat a cream puff, and I didn't like cream puffs.
You gotta suffer
Because
for the
for
role,
me-
huh?
I couldn't. They adapted for me because the cream in a cream puff is custard. And I wasn't into custard. I thought cream was cream donut. I'd be fine.
Yeah.
So mom made the cream puffs sans cream. So it was just a puff. And then I got through the play fine.
Isn't that just a donut then at that point? Like a donut hole?
It's just a puff.
It's
Yeah,
just a puff.
Wow, I don't...
You guys were
So
really
we
like
had
the
the
Von
costume.
Trapp family before we even came around, man.
Yeah,
Well,
right.
don't say that too loud, but that's what she wanted it to be.
But so we had these costumes. So I remember this, and we went around, and everybody thought we were Batman and Robin because we were tights, like wearing tights.
Like, you had to explain that you're a page.
We had
You voluntarily
Barry had
wore
a-
tights?
Well, yeah, we were kids, and that was what. But Barry had a crown on his head. Okay, like he was the king. He obviously was a king. Well, he had a cape, and he walked it. I'm like, Batman and Robin, really? Again? So he thinks we're Batman and Robin? Like, I don't get it. Don't people watch TV or something?
I don't
That was
know
probably
that
one of
part
the worst
it.
things about
Yeah.
trick-or-treating, though, when you spent time on a costume and you go around and they're like guessing like the most absurd thing. You're like, no, that's not who I am. How can you not see what I am?
And then I do remember being a witch for
I remember seeing a
kindergarten.
picture of that. Yeah.
I wanted to
that
be a
sounds about
witch, and so I dressed
Wow.
up as a little girl witch. Just saying, okay? I know. Now today that would be a whole different
That'd be
ball
fine.
game. I'd be in a whole different world. But back then, I thought it was weird. But mom and dad were like, "Okay, if that's what you want to be." So never did that again. But
See, and I would have seen like a warlock for you. That I would have seen.
yeah, but
Not a witch.
I don't know. What do you guys remember, dude? Like costume wise?
I that's the only one I remember is Batman and Robin. I can't remember.
Really?
anything else.
Well, the
No
other ones
pictures
I
that you
remember is
remember
like,
seeing
I
either?
remember, yeah, I remember a couple, Sean, when we were probably like, I don't know, maybe 10, 12-ish, probably later, getting closer to stopping doing it. But I remember the one year you were a mad scientist. You had like a green, like scrubs on or something, and a weird freaky mask. And I
Oh, that
remember
does
having
sound
pictures of
familiar.
that one. And then I remember I was like an Al Capone, like, 20s
Gangster.
gangster
You
kind of
were.
guy.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah,
don't know if that
yeah.
was the same year. I
Tommy
kind
gun.
of, yeah. I kind of remember
Yeah,
having
yeah.
picture together. I don't know if that was the same year.
That sound. Yeah, I think there's a picture of that somewhere.
But for us, it was kind of weird too, because it was like, here's Halloween. What are we gonna be? Go up in the attic and find the box of old costumes and pick something. I'm like, but we don't get anything new. This is like from Barry and Kenny, and like, this is what we're supposed to use. So we had to go through a lot of your old stuff to pick out costumes, or we had to come up with something new. And then I don't know at what point Mom started buying the little plastic face mask things.
That's what, I guess it was simpler. Huh?
Well, I
Yeah,
remember that dad, mom used to make the costumes more often when
yeah, that's true.
our group of three was going through it rather than the store bought.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
she
they were
always
done
made a
by
lot of
the time we came
costumes.
around.
Was somebody a robot one year? I remember.
I
The
remember a robot
boxes.
dad. I remember boxes with tinfoil wrapped on it. Yeah, I think that was me. But the one the one I do remember was Johnny Smoke.
Johnny Smoke.
There was,
I
yeah,
do
in the
too
late
now.
'60s, early '70s, people caught on that cigarettes cause cancer. So there was this whole ad campaign on TV. Not only did they kill the Marlboro man, you never saw him again from commercials, but they started new public service announcements with this. I think it was an animated thing called Johnny Smoke, and there was a little theme song, kind of a Western thing, and it was basically to quit smoking. So somehow Dad got this humongous roll of heavy paper, like 4 or 5 feet in length, turned it into a tube and cut arms and shoved me inside. And
So
so
you're a cigarette.
I was a cigarette.
Cigarette.
I was Johnny Smoke.
Wow, Mom and Dad, I thought they kind of relaxed when we came around. They had you as a witch, as a kindergartner, and you as a cigarette. Wow, I wouldn't have expected that.
Wow.
But the worst part was because it was a tube that you were in. Now it's not like for forming concrete these days. It did have some give, but you couldn't walk up and down the stairs. So it bent all the
That's a
time
big
at my
move,
waist.
that part. Oh,
Did people know who you were when you went to the doors?
No,
Oh.
no.
Just a cigarette.
I watched the commercials, but apparently they didn't.
Well, it's funny because when you ask like what I remember about Halloween, I don't remember the costume so much. I remember the candy, obviously, but the one neighbor that always gave us apples.
Oh, yeah.
There's that one.
Who wants an
That
apple?
was- right?
Yeah,
It's terrible.
Mr. Nicholson, yeah.
Yeah. It
Don't
was
go
like,
there.
he always gave us
Yeah.
apples, and I think they were green apples.
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh, I don't want to go there. But he's your godfather, wasn't he? Your godfather?
Yeah, he was
Right.
mine. Yeah,
Yeah.
Was yours? All right.
Who was that?
yeah, he was mine. Yeah,
Mr.
Mr. Nicholson.
Mr. Nicholson.
Because we would cut his lawn and stuff.
Oh.
Yeah,
Okay.
I guess you just picked a person back then. I don't know, like that had no real connection to you. I'm not sure. I mean, other than that, he didn't
Well, I
have any
think
connection to
family
me
members
at
at
all.
first, but
Yeah, I
Ran
guess
out of
we
family
ran
members by the time Brian came.
yeah, you run out of because
Let's
mine
just
was
pick the neighbor
mine
down the
was
street.
babysitter.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, my
But at least
godparents was the babysitter, and
But they were pretty good friends with them, I thought, for a while.
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure
The
they were
original
sitting
student,
around
right?
having dinner with Mr. Nicholson anytime soon. But
Yeah, I don't know.
Was he 2 doors down next to the Carmen?
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
Mr. Carmen.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but that I remember. I remember splitting up candy when we get back.
Yeah, in
Brian
little
didn't want
piles.
the peanut butter cups, and
That's right. We used to trade
stuff
candy.
back and
I
forth.
do
Yeah.
remember that stuff.
Yeah, but I don't
And the
know if
haunted
like
house.
because we probably never went around with you guys, right? I mean, you were all done by the time we were kind of going around. So it was just me, you, and Denise who went around for a while, Sean.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
He probably-
I think so.
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
at college for 3 of those years.
Yeah,
Yeah, maybe late maybe when you guys were in high school or junior high, maybe when I was like 3 or something. Maybe we went
Maybe.
going out with you once.
That makes sense.
It's funny. I don't remember pictures or anything from that.
did you
era.
guys
Like, I don't-
did you guys always go around our neighborhood, or did you go to friends' neighborhoods, or mostly ours?
No, usually
We
ours.
only went to our
You did.
neighborhoods. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
did. We did too.
Basically around the block,
Yeah.
pretty much.
How
Yeah, I
about
guess-
parties? You
yeah.
guys remember parties at all?
Not much. I mean, I remember. I think I might have had one in like 7th grade. I can't really quite remember that. It was nothing big. We had a small class anyway, so it wasn't many of us. I remember like a couple of youth group events, like the Halloween time events, like bobbing for apples and dangling a donut from somebody above, and you're trying to eat it and stuff, and all those little wacky teenage games.
Yeah, I remember the haunted house. We did the haunted house at least one.
Well, that was the other thing I was going to bring up, because you guys talked about the
haunted house.
carnival. Yeah, because you talked about the carnival, then I remember you guys did that haunted house thing.
Yeah, one year we did a haunted house as the carnival.
Oh, there was just one year?
Yeah.
That was
so
like
each year I thought so. I thought every year the carnival had a special, and so one year was a play, one year was a haunted house kind of thing.
Oh, okay. It was called Mulligan's Mystery Manor.
Wow.
Oh, I do not remember.
How long did you guys run this carnival thing?
Something stay with you.
How long was the carnival?
It was usually summer, and I remember 2 or 3, but beyond that, I don't remember much.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I remember the haunted house, because I remember you guys setting up the piano down there, and you were playing with the keys from behind to make it play. Like, yeah, it was off after that. It was after that movie we all watched that I used to get freaked out about.
The ghost of Mr. Chicken.
Ghost of Mr. Chicken. Yeah.
Oh my goodness! Yeah,
that was just on TV not too long ago. I was watching a little bit of it.
Yeah, that movie freaked me out when I was probably like 4 or 5.
Yeah, I didn't want to go down the basement even after that either.
No, I didn't want to go down. Now, were you guys getting on that topic? Were you guys all ever into like horror movies or scary movies, or?
Not me. No, I didn't like being scared.
All right, I guess that's where I got it from too, because I've never been that crazy about it. I mean, saw the Freddy Kruegers and stuff, and that was enough. Like, if you want to scare me with Jason or something, all right, I can understand that. I'm going to probably have some nightmares at night. But when you got a guy that's coming into my dreams when I'm already having nightmares, don't mess with that stuff. I don't want that around. So I think that was the one that set me over the edge.
No, the first real horror movie.
Later, right?
What was that? The Krueger movies?
Krueger thing? Yeah, that was 80s, right? Mid-80s?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. Speaking of scary, though, so Barry, did you do something to these guys while we were growing up? Freak them out?
See, we had to make sure you were on this episode just to get your reaction on this whole thing and your side of the story. All right. So I guess, all right. So I
tell my kids this story a lot, but you do the same, because what do you remember of that night?
All right. So
we were doing Pippin. So it was in March, right? We were doing Pippin at the high school, and you guys were both playing the dual role of the young kid. So because of that, Kenny had one of those.
Going on? Okay.
Yeah, because that's why he had the clothes.
He had what do you call? There's a name for that, right?
With the hood. We call them Jedi cloaks now.
Yeah, but that's why Kenny had that in the house.
Okay.
Yeah, that was 82.
Oh, that's right. Because we used that in one of the opening scenes. Oh no, one of the scenes in the play. That's right. Yeah. We were all like monks. Okay, that's right.
Right.
So to set the scene, me and Sean, we used to throw balls around and stuff outside a lot, like most kids did. And in the backyard, we were out there at night sometimes, and we had these huge hedges to give like privacy between our neighbors and the fence. So they were up against the fence. So me and Sean are just having to catch out there with a football, I think, at night or something. We were running around playing. It was just the two of us, wasn't it? Or was KG there? Just the two of us.
Yeah, just me and you. And it was just the two of us, and it was like twilight. The sun was about going down.
Yeah, and the hedges aren't that tall, right?
It seemed awful dark when I saw what I saw.
4 or 5 feet?
Probably 4 foot.
Okay.
Probably, past the fence, though. So past the fence. And then at the end of our yard, by the hedges, was our shed. And then there was, in our neighbors, right by the fence, was a cherry tree. So there was like a lot of like, stuff around there that blocked the view. So I remember, was I on the same side as the shrubs, Sean, or was I on the other side?
No,
I think I was on the other side. I went to go get the ball, right?
I thought you were looking at that way.
Yeah. So anyway, we're having a catch, and the ball goes past me, so I'm going over to the hedges to go find the ball. And out of the corner in between the shed and the tree and the hedges and the darkness, and just, it's scary out there. This figure just rises up with arms and black cloak, and all you see was just black. There's just a hood and black and arms coming up. And it's like one of those cartoons, if you could watch it, like the person runs and the clothes are still hanging there. That's what I felt like. I ran so fast out of there. I had no idea who it was. I didn't care if I knew who it was. I just was getting out of there, and I ran so fast into that house. And I don't even know what happened to you. I just left you behind. I'm like, I don't know who's coming after us, but Sean's on his own because I am in that house. I don't care.
I don't think he even made a sound. It was
No,
just
he did it. That was the creepy part. He just rose up. Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to like picture this,
Yeah,
like listening to this, but
yeah, I think I reacted to you because you reacted and just bolted, and I was kind of like, and then I saw it, and I'm right behind you, and I think we both went inside and were just crying.
I was so freaked out.
You were.
I really thought I was dying that day.
You were in the living room crying.
Yeah, it came, and I think Mom, did she see us run in or something and met us in the living room? I think by the time you came in, Bear.
Well, I think we went right past her in the kitchen. We went beeline through the kitchen and into the living room.
Yeah, that's how I remember it too. I remember getting the cloak and coming up with this terrible idea, walking out the front door and making my way around so that you guys couldn't hear me. And I took my time getting to about the middle of the fence and stayed close enough until the ball came closer to the fence, which was you, Brian. And then I remember slightly moaning though as I went up, and I saw the same thing from my perspective. It was like the cartoon, but it's like you didn't take a step from that fence to the porch. That was just one step. And then as soon as I did it, and I saw as soon as I did it, I felt so sick, and I ran back in the front of the house, and I took the cloak off, and you guys were puddled on the floor in the living room at that point. And I came in to show you that it was just me. I was just wearing this hood.
And Kenny, where were you in all of this? Were you even around?
I don't know.
I don't think he was home.
I don't remember.
Honestly, it was a brilliant plan, Barry. I mean, come on, you're trying to scare your brothers. That's a great plan. But it obviously worked pretty well. I mean,
it was pure evil.
I was freaked out.
So did Mom or Dad step in, or no? They just sort of.
I don't remember Mom really getting too upset about it.
I think Mom was. I don't know. Bad. Do you remember that?
I don't remember getting in trouble for it,
No.
but but I was already at that point. I was like college age.
College age, yeah.
That's what they got to do.
So,
yeah, because I was probably 10, 11.
So, well, I was in second grade.
Middle, so this was just Okay.
Oh, you remember that? Okay.
I was 8. Yeah, I was. That was scary enough.
It was 82, right?
Was it 82, Ken?
Yeah, if it was during Pippin, I was. Yeah, I was in second
so,
grade, so you were in 4th.
So I just turned 10.
Okay, so 8 and 10. Yeah, so you were.
Then I was home for some reason. I don't. It might have been spring break or something.
Maybe
that
it was
the case.
Maybe.
Because the school play was always in the spring.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that's too funny.
Yeah,
that was a scary time.
Yeah, that took some time to get over.
Yeah. I didn't want to play out in the yard
anymore. So how has Halloween changed over the years for you guys? Like now, I had to moving into adults. I remember, Sean, you used to get into it. If I remember back when your nieces and nephews started coming into the picture.
Yeah.
Somewhere around then, right? Weren't you getting into like some of go back to the Freaky Scientist? Didn't you do like some weird stuff? And
I did, yeah, going back probably, maybe 15 years. The girls were like talking about Denise's girls were getting dressed up, and so a few years there I would go over and set up a mad scientist lab in the garage. So I put on a mad scientist. I put the crazy hair, like what's his name from Christopher Lloyd from Back to the Future,
Doc.
Yeah, like Doc. Yeah, so so we did some fun stuff in their garage with them because they got dressed up since they were little. They wore costumes. I still have a picture of Denise came to visit me at the bank when Kayleen was 3, maybe. And she's dressed as an angel. I'm dressed as a zombie. So it was just crazy, but I got into it back then. As kids, I liked Halloween, and then I think as I came to faith later, obviously there was some conflict there of is Halloween okay? Is it not okay? But I never really I still thought it was fun. I've always thought Halloween was fun, and I don't get into it anymore because the kids are kind of grown up. But
And you don't get any trick or treaters where you guys are, right?
Not where we are.
Not out there
No.
on a farm.
No, yeah, only if the deer show up. But yeah, no.
Yeah, I
So, but
found
we
it got.
probably all have different. I was gonna
Yeah, I
say
was
we
gonna.
probably all have the little different perspectives, which is fine. I
Mm.
mean, that's
Mm.
so. Go ahead, Brian. Were you?
I was just gonna say, I remember like as I got into the older ages of like junior high and stuff, like I kind of hated Halloween because it was too much pressure to figure out what to be. I couldn't stand like, oh, what am I gonna be? I don't want to be this, and this was always the last minute decision, and and then I think probably by like 8th grade, maybe ninth was the last year I went out or something because everybody like there was a group going out I remember, but from the neighborhood, but that was about it, and then I think we had like a Halloween. I think junior year in high school, the juniors can dress up or something for Halloween. It was like the only year we could dress up. So I remember same thing. Like, oh, what am I going to be? What am I going to be? So I dressed up as a
I
pregnant
remember you
lady. That was the
being,
first time.
oh, yeah, pregnant woman. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
gonna say, I remember that.
Yeah, because Julie was pregnant at the time, I think, with Jason.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, because I remember I had a picture
That's right. We
taken.
probably have a picture of the two of
Yeah,
you.
I think I
Yeah.
do remember that. Yeah. But
Oh,
other than
that's
that, it
funny.
was just,
I didn't realize it
then
was that
once
late.
our kids. Yeah.
You're way ahead of your time.
Yeah, it'd be a whole nother conversation today, right?
Yeah.
But you took your kids all out, right, Brian? I mean, that was part of your.
Yeah. I mean,
Right? Did you
we
and
got
Kim
them.
dress up?
We did some years, not really. Like we didn't do much of that because I remember when like Zach was little, and I was working at the rehab center. Actually, we used to have a Halloween parade. We used to dress up as departments in the rehab center when I first started working there. So we would do like, and they would parade. We'd parade around in front of the patients and stuff. They all loved it. It was kind of neat. And then I remember when my kids were little, Kim would bring them to work. She'd kind of bounce around a couple, local people. Like I know she came to see you at the bank, Sean, and stuff, and would bring the kids
Yeah.
dressed up. So I would get to see the kids, and I'd bring them in, and the patients would love it. So I'd walk them around in there for a little bit. But I remember doing that, and then we just took them around the neighborhood. And then I think when they were little, it was like you were just kind of tired out because Kim would drag them all over the visit everybody all day, like even to see mom and her mom. And by the time you come home, like they're exhausted, and it's like, okay, we don't want to go trick or treating. And then I just remember the first year we were in the house we're in now, which we've been in like 21 years, I guess. And Zach and Noah were both really little. So we were like, all excited because we had this new neighborhood, and we started walking around and it was like dead. There was like, I think 2 houses we got to, everything else was dark. There was like nobody out. It was like really bizarre. So then after that, we ended up going, I think, to Denise's with the girls like 1 year. And then we ended up going to our friends, the Redards, for the next like 20 years, I guess, and just walked around their neighborhood and stuff. So we've dressed up. I've dressed up occasionally just to walk around with them.
How about you, Barry?
Um,
How'd you guys
let's
approach
see.
it?
We didn't really do much until we got into our current home when Justin was born. So they did dress up. I remember I have one photo still actually on my dresser where Jordan, I think, was a cowboy and Justin was a hobo. And we've gone just in the immediate neighborhood. We'd go down to grandma's. We'd go down to their Aunt Heather's around the corner because she lived right up the street. And we just hit a few of our neighbors and then come back to the house and then let them hand out candy to other people. So it was kind of smaller scale, but they did get dressed up for a while. But it was never a big deal. So it wasn't, we got the costumes sort of last minute-ish, although I think one of them was Spider-Man for 2 or 3 years in a row, again with the plastic mask, once I got into 3 or 4 years old. But it was pretty local. And then some of the kids from our church would come and join them. So they'd go to some of the same neighborhoods' houses.
What about you, Ken?
Yeah, we took a different approach. We took a different approach because and I don't know where it happened. I mean, let's say we came to faith in Christ, early 20s, right? But somewhere in those early years, just really got convicted about just the spiritual origins of the whole Halloween thing. We're going to talk a little bit about that, but and I just really got convicted. Like, you know what, this is, I don't celebrate the Jewish holidays because I'm not Jewish. And even though there's some things that are cool, I mean, about Jewish holidays, and so why am I celebrating this holiday? Because it's not a Christian holiday at all. So I really want to get mixed up in it. So so Julie and I decided, let's not do Halloween as kids. Let's make it special for them. So we we knew trick or treaters would come. It's like we're not gonna, yeah, we'll have fun, we'll have candy. It's not like we're gonna be one of those people that turn out their light and those are people that don't do Halloween or something. So we let the trick or treaters come in. The kids would, we made it a special family day. So we took the kids out of school early because most of the times they were having parades at the last thing of the day. We talked to teachers and say, we're going to take kids out because we just don't celebrate Halloween. And so kids would get home. We'd have a snacky dinner. We'd get in our pajamas. We'd all, put out the pillows and blankets, all kinds of stuff on the floor, watch a movie. And then when trick or treaters came, we'd stop and get up and say hi. Kids would give out candy. So we made it a fun day. A few times there was one other couple in the church that had a few boys, and they chose to do the same thing. So a couple years we got together as families and did it together. So it was like hanging out when the trick or treaters came. So it's still a little different. Again, letting our kids decide someday when they get older, but we just really stayed away from it. And again, just deeper convictions of it's just not. Yeah, not something I want to be part of, and not because there's not a fun part of it. Because I like dressing up, and Julie and I do things where we go out. I mean, the business we're a part of, ID Life. We have our big conferences. There's always a dress up night, usually party, and it's fun. I love doing that stuff. The Renaissance Fair we went to as a family last year, and we all dressed up in Renaissance costumes. I love doing that all part. It was that holiday that just had some dark spiritual roots, and I was like, I just don't want to do that. So.
Did you carry that
I know it's a
through
big business
for all the kids?
Yeah, we carried all the way through till kids were older, and then
Okay.
it's when they got into later, like I'm trying to think of any of them. Once they started getting into high school, and if they wanted to go to a Halloween party, it was like we weren't going to stop them because, at that point you're letting your kids make decisions on their own. So it was like, listen, we raised you this way. This is our choice. We're not going to hold it against you. It's but this is our conviction. So, some of them got into it. Some of them don't really care for it. So.
It's
I
interesting.
mean, it's a big business. There's no doubt. I was actually Go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's interesting with the school thing. Like I'm wondering like how that was for you when you took them out, because I feel like that's morphed a lot too. Because like I remember when we were in Catholic school, we always had a Halloween parade, didn't we? Didn't we dress up every Halloween and we like parade around the school, around the parking lot? Yeah, and then I know even like for my kids, like when they were in kindergarten, they did a Halloween parade, and then all of a sudden that started fading, not because of people's beliefs though. All of a sudden it was like now this shift of like some kids can't afford a costume or some kids can't have a costume. And maybe the belief was part of that too, that they were trying to just do, again, that whole inclusion thing of maybe they were saying, you know what, there are some kids that don't really celebrate Halloween. So we don't want to have a class-wide parade if they can't participate. So I know our elementary school, the public school, when they were still there, started stopping that. They weren't doing the parade anymore all of a sudden.
Wow.
So I don't know what the full reason was, but I think there was kind of a combination there. But I wonder how much of it was more beliefs versus other issues.
I always found it interesting that, and even if you brought it up to administration in school, it's like, you're not allowed to push any particular religion, are you? Like, well, no, we can't celebrate religion because we have to be, just neutral. It's like, so you can't have a Christmas party because it has to be a holiday party because you can't celebrate a Christian holiday. But you could celebrate Halloween, which is a very, very religious holiday. And yet that doesn't seem to be a problem. Like, that just always boggled my mind. It's not just a fun day. Like, if you choose to do fun things, that's fine. Just like with Christmas, if you choose to do the Santa Claus and all that kind of stuff, right? But it's still Christmas. It's not whatever else, you know what I mean? But you could, so it's like for some reason that religious holiday is allowed in the public schools, but Christmas isn't.
I think I always took it as more because it was celebrated as a secular, celebration. It wasn't so much a Christian religious holiday. It was a secular holiday, like Valentine's Day. I don't know if they still do Valentine's in schools, but we used to back in the day. You make Valentine's for classmates and stuff like that, like just as a friendship thing. So I always took, at least that was my take. This Halloween was more of a secular holiday. It had nothing to do with a religious thing.
Yeah.
That's why it was, it's about dressing up and that kind of thing. That's how I took it anyway.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, what is so go ahead. Tell us what's the origin or the whole basis behind what Halloween is.
So the origin actually, it comes from the Celtics, or not
Celtics,
the basketball team, but the so it goes back to the Druids originally, and it was actually called Samhain, I think is how they pronounced it, and it was a Celtic festival, and it's commemorating the end of the harvest season, because you have the end of the whole summer solstice, so you have that ending, and it literally was the blurring. What they believed was it was the blurring of the physical and the spiritual worlds. So on this night, it was very spiritual, because this is when the afterlife, okay, or whatever you believe about the afterlife, would now connect with the physical world.
Hmm.
So I mean, the whole origins go back, that. So families, what would happen is I get this sort of little research I did was, so the families would be out in the harvest, and when they're out harvesting the fields, their home fires would burn down. So basically, the homes were cold. So they come in from the fields, and so they would do these big bonfires, and that's where the bonfires came. But then, I mean, you get into like the Druid priesthood and all that kind of stuff. So you have these massive bonfires, and they would pray, because they believed that this was the night where the spiritual realms connected to the physical world. So this is very other, I mean, it's a religion. I mean, no, plain and simple. It obviously morphed. Eventually the Catholic Church started celebrating All Saints Day, which was November 1st. And then, so, then just blurred. I mean, you get into, there's a lot of weird stuff, because, originally when the why the kids started dressing up, I thought this was fascinating, is because the spiritual realm is coming over, and it could actually snatch people, right? So the spiritual world could actually snatch the physical world. So they would dress up as animals or monsters or even fairies to blend in, so they would not get kidnapped, was the idea,
Wow.
right?
I
So they
I
won't
had
be.
read a similar take on that, but it was more like um, All Hallows, I guess, Day or
Eve,
whatever, was like
yeah.
the last chance for any of the souls leaving the earth to take out revenge. So people dress in costumes so they wouldn't be recognized. So similar kind of thing.
Oh
This
yeah,
like
yeah,
it's
similar
more of
idea.
them going. They're going. I guess they're going to purgatory from here or whatever was kind of the belief. I think.
Probably when the Catholic Church got involved with it,
Yeah.
you have that
Yeah.
whole purgatory thing, right? Because
Right.
All Saints Day is all about
The
praying for
souls that
those
have.
who have passed on.
The saints that have passed. Yeah.
Yeah,
Which is November 1st, right?
Right.
yeah.
Which is again, it's kind of like Easter falls near the spring solstice, and Halloween or All Hallows Eve falls near the autumn solstice. So, you know, again, it's like close to a pagan holiday, but for
So
church
it's
reasons, I
interesting. So
guess.
that's where all
So
the
then
dressing up in costumes came from then.
part of it, and then some of the research was, in the Middle Ages, in England and Ireland. Again, that was predominantly Catholic origins, where the more wealthier people obviously had stuff, and the poorer people didn't. So the poorer people would dress up and go to the richer people's homes to ask for provisions,
Oh,
to pray for the people who have passed. It's like go up to a rich person's home and say, "Hey, I'll pray for your dead people. Will you give me a treat?" But they didn't want to be recognized, so they would dress up so that people would not recognize who they were, but they would still make this deal, kind of thing. And then some of that, I think, slid into that whole idea. If you don't give me something, I'm going to prank your house. And then none of us talked about that, man, because
oh, the
we always
No.
thought
mischief
that
night
was,
thing.
yes. So
Yeah, the night before Halloween.
yeah, so
I don't even think
somehow, and
that's a
that was
thing anymore.
and because no, I don't think so either.
No,
But
mischief's not good anymore.
We called it
so
tic tac toe night.
some of
Yeah.
that
That's
came
what
from
we called it.
this
Tic-tac-toe
idea.
night.
I think
Why
that's
is that?
I
'Cause
think
we
that's a
would use the bar
geographic
soap to
thing,
make
isn't it?
tic-tac-toe on the car windows.
So
Oh,
we should fill
I
our
don't know.
listeners in on this, right? So the night before Halloween, right, we would all go out and take a bar of soap, which mom and dad gave us,
They were
right?
cool with it.
It was harmless.
And corn, a bag of corn, which we
Kernels, corn
had,
kernels, right?
yeah, because you would
Yeah.
push
We
them
had
off
a
the
we had
corn,
a
the
yeah.
horse corn, right?
Yeah.
Which we would have stolen from the local farmer, because we would stop by and go run, grab a few quarters of corn, and we have to go, right?
Well,
Do you remember that?
now legally that's called gleaning, and it's allowed.
Oh, it is allowed.
Yeah, it's an Old
Gleaning?
Testament thing. Yeah, yeah, because for the poor people in the villages, you were required by Jewish law to leave. You obviously couldn't pick everything. for harvest.
Mm.
So you would leave the ones that you couldn't get to, so that the poor coming in would have something to gather from the edges of your field.
Wow, I didn't know
Yep.
that.
So legally, we
Moses,
can
Moses
take
came up with it, so I think
I
we're
thought we
okay.
were just. I thought we were just stealing corn.
I think that's what we thought. Yeah.
So then we go sow people's homes the night before Halloween, and then come back the next day and say, "Can you give me candy now?" Right? I mean, it was just weird.
Well, what would we do with the corn? Just throw it out the door or something?
Yeah,
then
it was
we
like
ran away.
knock knock. It was
Oh,
like
and
the
then-
knock
right.
knock ditch or ditch ditch, whatever that is. Ding dong ditch when you knock
Yeah.
on the door. We just threw the corn and waited. till
Sometimes
get a reaction.
tomatoes that died on the vine in
Oh,
our
you would do
backyard when we
that?
had the garden.
I don't think we ever did that because I know
Once in a
kids
while.
threw eggs and stuff. They would throw eggs at cars and houses and stuff.
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
never
that's
did
true.
that.
And then
we were
toilet
the
paper.
nicer. We were
Toilet
the nicer.
paper. We never did
mischievous
toilet
people.
paper, but
no. But I don't
although
know.
we did
when
throw the corn
tic-tac-toe.
cobs in the gutters.
Oh, we did.
That's
I don't
true. We
remember that
did.
part.
Yeah, we
Maybe
clogged
Maybe
the
you
gutters.
guys. We didn't.
Maybe you
Brian and I
guys
didn't
did.
do that. You guys did that. I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
Mom and Dad got
when you threw
wise
them
by
on
the
the
time we
roof.
did.
They would make a loud noise too.
Yeah. We used to throw them at the front door though, 'cause that would
That's
make the
crazy.
loud noise. Now it would freak people out. I think they're getting shot at. But I'm curious, like the tic tac toe versus mischief night kind of thing. I think that's a little bit geographic, though. I thought some people called it different things based on where
Oh.
they lived or where they're from. But I don't really know.
Like
All I know is that's
sneakers
how
and
we grew up.
tennis shoes. Like,
Yeah, pop and soda, that kind of thing.
yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
depending
that'd be
on-
interesting to find out.
Yeah, I think I was older when people started calling it mischief night. I'm like, it's tic tac toe night. Like,
Yeah.
mischief night. Sounds too sophisticated. It's just like tic tac toe night was easier.
I have a tidbit here that I found from Answers in Genesis, which says that in the early 1900s, it was the migrating Irish and Scots brought Halloween traditions to the United States. And so then it really started to take off here.
Take
Oh,
off here.
that would make sense. Immigrants bringing it in. Okay.
Yeah. Then I had read, in the 1950s is when the costumes really became the thing,
Oh,
which would make
really?
sense. The whole
Yeah,
boomers
post-war era.
generation.
Yeah.
Everybody's getting into the neighborhoods, and these what neighborhoods are
Okay.
now doing. Everybody's
Yeah,
going out
that's kind
dressing
of-
up, trick or treating.
That makes
Right.
sense.
And then, do you remember? You guys might not remember this because this is the 80s, but in 1980 was the fear of the poison candy for Halloween.
Right.
There was
Uh,
the poison candy. There's also wasn't there the
The
razor
razor
blade in the
blades,
apples
yeah.
thing? Like,
Yeah.
That was pretty standard fare, yeah.
But there's actually a story, and I didn't remember this one. I just remember the poison and candy. So there were 5 kids who got cyanide laced pixie sticks.
Ooh.
Ooh.
So it turned out that, and if this story
in
is
the United
correct,
States?
I don't know. Yeah, it was in the United States. So that's why this whole fear started. Be careful where you're going. Make sure you go out to people's houses all that kind of stuff came about. But yeah, if the story I read was true, again, I don't, sometimes you don't know, but it was a father who actually laced these pixie sticks, and the one kid who actually ate it was actually his son and died.
Oh,
So,
Wow.
I don't know what became
Do
of
they know
that.
Why?
what would be your
No,
purpose
I
for
don't
doing it
know.
anyway?
but I was like, I don't know, but I do remember that fear coming through. Like it was like that big Halloween thing. Then we had that was around the time where Tylenol, there was a cyanide laced Tylenol,
Yeah.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it was all pulled off the shelf. I didn't realize that was never solved.
Huh.
That case, they never figured that out.
Oh, really?
Didn't it
But they
start
did
in
change
Chicago
the-
or something?
Did it? Was it Chicago? I don't remember.
I thought that's where it started. I don't know. I could be wrong, but that's where they went from the capsules to the tablets, right?
They changed that, but they also put that
Oh,
styrofoam
the-
thing on top as a second.
Right,
So when you put the cap, you have
They
to rip it
sealed
off. That happened as a result. Yeah.
The things that change for odd reasons.
So where do you think we are with Halloween now? I was talking to a couple people today, and it's interesting with like the decorations. Like, Christmas used to be the main house decoration. Halloween is just blown up. I mean, now you got these 10-foot skeletons in yards that sometimes they if you've seen them, sometimes they put like other holiday stuff on them just because they're so big. And I often wonder, like, where do people put this stuff? Where do you store all this stuff? You got,
Where do
16
you store-
figures in
you
your
need the
front
shed just for the
yard. I'm like,
decorations.
I know you got werewolves. I got a house around the corner. He's got like 16 figures in his front yard. I don't know where he puts it all. But it's been interesting to
Well,
see
it's-
that because
it's
I
funny
think
you
it's really
mentioned that.
changed that way.
Go ahead.
No, that's what I was saying. It's just,
No, I was just gonna say
go ahead.
Go ahead, Sean.
I was there's a car wash going down
Yeah.
31
I
between
know
you
which
and
one
me,
you're talking
Brian,
about. Yeah,
that got those 12-foot skeletons a
yeah,
couple Halloweens ago, and they don't store them anywhere. They leave them out there all
right.
year long. They just
Like,
change the costume. They're
Yeah,
skeletons for Christmas, and they're skeletons for Valentine's Day, and then they're skeletons
oh
for Easter.
man,
And they've
that's
turned it
great.
into like a whole haunted house thing now. It's
That's
crazy. It's a
crazy.
car wash haunted house.
and now this year
It's a
you could
yeah,
big
see.
business.
it is a big business.
This year you could see the whole, morphing of like how much people love their pets because now there's skeleton pets all over the front yards. I've seen skeleton dogs and skeleton cats. I never saw that before.
So I just actually I googled it earlier today. So in 2020, it was an $8 billion industry for Halloween, right?
Man,
Today, this year is expected to reach $11.6 billion.
oh my
I'm
goodness.
curious to know where it was like 25 years ago.
I know. Now, only 3.5 billion of that is candy. Everything else is a decoration and costumes. That's crazy.
Wow.
Well,
So you want to guess the this is what intrigued me. The most popular candy. You want to guess? Take some guesses.
It's
most
probably one of
popular
those ones that
Halloween
everybody
Yeah, they're
hates,
most
but you
sought
always
after.
see. Like a baby Ruth or something obnoxious that nobody ever wants to eat.
Yeah.
Or Butterfinger.
I'd go with the Reese's peanut butter cup.
Reese's peanut butter cup. It
Yeah.
is number
what I
one
would
candy.
Is it really?
So-
And that's
Yeah.
the one you don't like, Brian?
No, I don't like anything peanut
Brian,
butter.
you don't
The
care
other
for
ones that-
Reese's?
no.
Okay.
But then the other ones I used to hate was the Charleston
Okay.
Chew. Remember those would come out?
Oh, yeah, right.
Well, you don't really like chocolate candy, right, Brian? You're more like the
No, I
gummy
do. I
worms
just
and the
no,
licorice
oh, I like
stuff.
that stuff too. Yeah, I like all that sugary stuff. But I out of chocolate, I definitely don't like peanut butter. Not a peanut butter guy.
And no coconut.
No coconut either. So don't give me the almonds or the mounds or the almond joy. I'll take the 100-gram bar. That's good. Twix is good.
Yeah,
That's the
pretty
one with the
good.
little
That's
Rice
true.
Krispies in it, right?
The 100-gram, yeah, and caramel all
100-gram
through it.
bar?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
So going back to some of the origin stuff, we talked about the Druids and stuff like that, but today, and most people aren't aware of this, like this is a high witch holiday and it's a high satanic holiday, is Halloween. This is their big day of the year. And so they celebrate. Like it's really important to them.
That makes sense. I mean, if it has pagan roots, right?
Yeah.
And I think most people,
Yeah, that's
probably
surprising.
blow that off, right? I mean, I think most people are just kind of like, well, yeah, you got people that are into, witchy things and, it's that time of year. So what's the big deal rather than understanding that, like you said, this is like real for them. For us, it's just like, oh, it's just another holiday where people dress up and we talk about, witches and ghosts and goblins and all that kind of stuff. But for them, it's like, this is their real thing.
Yeah.
But maybe because I don't think I know anybody that's into that.
Yeah.
Witchcraft. I mean, I dated one once, but I don't know anybody now that does the witchcraft thing.
Yeah, and going back to what you said, Sean, too, I think the standard fare is, okay, fine. So Halloween has a pagan root. And so does Christmas and Easter and Valentine. And so they could just go down the list as far as their common understanding is. And it is true that the holidays correspond, and virtually all of the ones that we have now predate Christianity. So yeah, the church sort of adopted them over time. So I can see where that comes from too. But no, Kenny, I heard that many, many, many years ago, probably at the same time we came to Christ together.
Yeah.
The high holy day concept, and that always unsettled me. And it was one of the reasons that we didn't make a big deal of Halloween. And as soon as the kids weren't too interested, and they weren't, because one of them freaked out the first time we ever had I think somebody come to the door when one of them was little, and they came in some horrible, scary thing. We should have never done that. We should have never opened the door with a 3 or 4 year old at the time.
I was just saying that somebody earlier. It's like, go ahead.
Go ahead, Brian.
I was just saying, I was talking to somebody earlier today. I was like, it's kind of a weird concept. You take little kids around in the dark at night, and there's all these creepy things walking around trick or treating with you, and then sometimes you get to a house that's really freaky with their decorations, and maybe somebody at the door that's even scaring you, and it's like, what are we doing? That's kind of weird.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, it's true. I guess because I think people just think it's fun to dress up. It's just kind of You know, you
Yeah.
put on a costume, especially because I think like for us, like growing up, like I remember ET, like the big Halloween scene in ET, like that's how Halloween was. Like, you know, everybody walking up and down the street in costumes. Like it's just kind of
Yeah.
how it was. But you know, when we were kids. But nowadays, I don't know if they, you know, more now it's a trunk or treat or whatever. Right now, they don't so
They
much
do a
go
lot of
to
that. Yeah.
Yeah, some of that's a
houses. They go to parking lots.
safety issue. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's part of our culture. I guess I come back to is, from a Christian perspective, is it something we should buy into, or is it something we should avoid, and question to ask,
Well,
because
I was going to ask Ken if you're because you kind of had a little I don't say you were interested in like occult type things younger when you were
oh
younger.
yeah, I could
So
say that a little
was
bit.
did any of that play into your feelings on whether you want to participate or not?
No, I think it was more like, I don't know, if I was, I don't know, let's pick any other religion. Let's say I'm Jewish, okay? Let's say I'm Jewish. And Christmas comes around. Well, I'm sort of adverse to celebrate Christmas. When I be, I mean, not that like I'm against it, but like if I'm Jewish, I would not believe in Christ and the whole thing. So why would I want to be a part of like the whole birth celebration of Jesus, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's not like you're against it. It's just like we just don't do it. Well, why not? Because you're Jewish, right? Um, and go back to what Barry was saying. All the holidays that we have, we all go back to pagan roots. I mean, Easter and all that kind of stuff, right? Even Christmas, because Jesus was probably born somewhere like in August. I mean, like, it's not on December 25th.
It's
But
not.
no, I'm sorry. It's actually no. Yeah, we're just guessing. But and it's cool that we, the Christian, we Christianize some of those holidays and we celebrate. Well, Halloween, the only one that has no Christian origin to it, right? I mean, the Catholic Church bought into the Druid stuff, trying to get into this weird, but even that side of, if you want to call it Christianity, is a little weird, because now you're still communicating with the dead, right? So that's sort of weird. I was always turned off by the fact that, if Satanists are holding this as a high holiday, like, is this something I should avoid? I mean, if witches, this is a high holiday, and witches and Satanism is growing. I mean, they're growing as religions. So do I really just want to be a part of that? And if it's so important to them, and, we could get into some really dark stuff here that's going on in those religions. But we probably say that for another time. But I just is always like, I don't want to be a part of it. I don't want someday, I don't know, to give an account for a guy and say, yeah, we celebrate that thing. We just thought it was cute. And he's like, do you realize what went on that night? Do you realize that they get together and they pray for the downfall of Christianity on that night? And it's like, well, yeah, I know, but it was cute. We had fun, so that's really just why I avoid it.
So
Again, love to dress it up, but
and that works on our individual family level, because that's our sphere of oversight. So how does that play out for you within a congregational setting?
So I've always been, yeah, it's a very good question, because I wrestle with, I'm all about reaching the culture. So I think the church has to dive into the culture, right? So do you do a trunk or treat or something like that as a church? Why not? You're trying to connect with the culture. And we never held, like, I'm really big on liberty. Like, I'm very big on liberty. So we have the liberty to choose as Christians, right? There's not legalism, there's liberty. So if someone's going to celebrate something, that's not for me to judge, right? So, I mean, that's why, like, I feel like we can have a conversation, because it doesn't phase me as so he celebrates Halloween. Like, I'm not here to convince anybody. I just have deep personal convictions about it. I mean, we did the same thing with, we talk about that when we get to Christmas, but we have some different views on Christmas. Let's just say that here, because we didn't give a parental warning here. I don't want to mess anything up. And it was just like, but I'm not going to fault anybody else for that. Does that make sense? Like, but the question I would raise, and this is, I think that, and it probably can't answer this, but I'd love to get your guys' take on this. Where should the church draw the line? Right? So, like, let's say you want to do a trunk or treat. Let's say, hey, this is cool. We're inviting the neighborhoods in. We're really trying to connect with the community, because, again, the community, you're not asking them to give up Halloween to follow Jesus, right? You're not, like, and that may never even happen. That's not what it's all about. But where do you draw the line? Do you say, okay, well, you can all dress up, but we shouldn't have we don't want anybody dressed up as devils. Okay, can we just like set a line here? Can we just like, um, should there be a line? Do we, where do you draw those lines, right?
Is that maybe why some of the schools stopped doing it, because they had to put standards on what you could or could not dress as?
Mhm.
And if you got to start making rules like that, then it's not fun for anybody. Then
Maybe.
maybe it's better just not to do it. Because
Yeah,
political correctness kind of thing. It's like, oh, well, you can't dress as a political figure. You can't dress as somebody else who, somebody else thinks is not a good person. And then it starts to be like, well, then what? What's the point?
well,
So
I
I don't know.
know
I
in
don't know
our
if that plays into it.
well, I know in our school district, I know a lot of what came about with the trunk or treat was more the opportunity. Like for some kids that didn't have a great neighborhood to go trick or treating in, they could come to the school parking lot
Okay,
and
makes
trick or
sense.
treat. And I think it's still, like I said, with the parade too at our school, it came back to like, well, some kids can't afford a costume, so they don't want to be left out and that kind of stuff. But I mean, there's plenty of neighborhoods, plenty of school districts that is not an issue whatsoever for either the safety of the neighborhood or the finances for those families. So I think it just morphed into an opportunity for the community to come around and either have a separate time to come collect candy or to just offer another opportunity. So as far as the church thing goes, I think it's a great idea. I mean, our church combined with another church just last weekend with like the youth group, and they did a trunk or treat. So they, decorated the cars and stuff. But I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if there was any kind of lines drawn as far as like if you're trying to get the community to come out, you can't really. I don't know that you can really have a say in like, well, don't dress like this or dress like that. If the church is really organizing the cars that are decorated, then obviously you can have a say in, well, we don't want any devilish or satanic type of cars set up, and you could do that. But if you were opening it up even to the community to say, hey, we're helping sponsor a trunk or treat, but we have, 10 other cars that are allowed to come in from the community and decorate, I guess there's a lot of different blurred lines you'd have there. But again, then you might just have to sit back and say, well, hey, we're here reaching God for the community. And if there's some stuff going on that we don't agree with, that's not really for us to sit here and judge. We're just trying to show love and Jesus to these people in the community, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And what if they all decide to dress up as drag queens and give out candy to kids? So
Yeah,
it's like, yeah, where do you draw the
yeah,
lines? Because you're obviously influencing kids, right? If it's all
right.
about the kids, so
Years ago, we moved from the Halloween party, which was pretty standard fare, to a harvest party, and we started
Mm.
calling it that specifically. And it wasn't on Halloween, so we didn't. So that was our way to compensate. And we did ask
yeah,
because it was part of the youth ministry of the church. So while there would obviously be a few exceptions, we sent out word, hey, look, because we're doing this as a harvest party, we're trying not to. Well, actually, we put it in different terms. We're not trying to creep out the little kids. We're asking,
okay, that's a
please
good
don't
way.
do the devil stuff and don't do the
Mm.
the zombie stuff. Let's do something fun. So we did have some of those
Okay,
parameters put in place. Again, somebody shows up, you pick your
you can't
battles.
deal with it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's not worth
But
it.
to your other thing about what happens if they come out with rainbow everything for the next one, we've had an internal discussion that if we did something like that now, which we don't because we don't have many kids in the church, but if we did, then we would have, all right, well, let's do this. And yes, we know 3 cars from the community are coming in, and internally, our 7 cars, we've said, please be careful how you decorate your car. But the 3 that came in, I'm not so sure that we wouldn't necessarily do it after that. You just kind of live with it as it is and say, you know what, this is getting beyond what we're comfortable with. So let's just not make it a big deal, but we're just not going to sponsor that type of an event. So we don't have to set, well,
Yeah,
if you're really holy, you would do X, Y, or Z, because we're the same
yeah,
thing. And one of my biggest things from a theology perspective is because we have freedom in Christ and because the gray areas are gray, we have to follow our consciences. So
yeah,
because I can't find Halloween in the Bible specifically, I need to leave it to a person to say, I will or I will not celebrate. That's up to
yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah,
For me as a church to dictate that, I don't think I can. So I'll say, well, for us as church, we're not going to celebrate it. So if you want to do it in your house, that's fine. But
yeah,
we're not going to have a special event where you're going to come in here and do that. And like, well, why not? Because that's I'm a leader of the church, so I want to kind of protect our flock from that. But if
yeah,
you want to have a Halloween party, have at it. And if you
yeah,
invite my kids will come. I'm just
Yeah,
telling you
yeah.
this is where we're drawing the line. So
Okay.
it's almost like concentric circles. On the family level, we can
Right.
make this decision for us. If it's my small group or if it's my ministry in the church, I guess I go there. Once it gets to the church level, it does get really hairy. But
It
so it's
does.
not same thing with the fall fest we just did. Like
Yeah.
what's this going to look like? We don't know. We've never done it like this before. It was always internal. And we said, if this thing really went sideways, then we said, well, next year we'll just come up with a different idea instead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. That's great advice, Barry. Especially, I think, as a church, yeah, here we're getting into church, church philosophy and ministry is pretty cool. But I think, the risk taking, man, you got to be risk takers, and if it doesn't work, you just shift gears next time.
In any of this, have you heard the one theory that has some weight to it about the ultimate origins of Halloween?
No.
Why
I'm not
now?
sure where. Oh,
Why now? Why this time of year? How far back does it
Oh.
really, really go?
I thought it had to do with the seasons. It's pretty much heading like the end of
You said the harvest.
so the kind of
Yeah.
the end of things.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's all
harvest. So it's the end of things living and growing, and it's now the dead winter. So, is that where you're going?
that was part of it, but it turns out that tons of different cultures over centuries have a similar concept of the veil being thinned on that night, or the dead, sacrifices or treats for those who have died, all that kind of stuff combined. And one of the theories that I heard about a year ago, and I actually found it on Answers in Genesis, was that this time of year, I don't know if we can prove this, but this time of year is the traditional understanding of when the flood took place.
Oh,
And so the
Interesting.
massive destruction of all life on the planet was within the context of what later became Souls Night, All Saints Day, Hallows Eve, because they were remembering the massive amount of death.
Wow.
And then
I never heard that before. Wow.
tied to Noah's sacrifice when he came out of the ark and the rainbow was put in place, saying, I'm never going to do this again, God says. He offered a sacrifice as part of that process. So the combination of those two things back to back,
wow.
the loss of that much life
Hmm.
and sacrifice, is where this came together. Because by the time the Tower of Babel, when the nation split into all the language groups, they went all over the world with this same concept somehow that developed into what we have in all these other
Wow.
cultures.
Very interesting.
Yeah, that's sort of
I,
it works for me as far as that's a fairly
yeah.
decent option.
Well, and coming from a biblical perspective here too, like everything's going to go back to creation in some way, shape, or form, right? So it makes sense that anything like this would go back to. I find it fascinating. We get on this topic too. The flood story, like there are so many other major cultures outside of Judaism that have the flood story. Like it's mind boggling, and they're on different continents, and like how do they all have this story? Well, that's going back to what you're saying. Is not only did they have a story, but they have this concept that of going back to that almost like blurry lines, right? Between
It's a
the
common history.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I wonder how much of that. Wow, I mean, we get really deep here. It starts getting into like a blurry creature podcast or something, but that whole blurring the lines because of the Nephilim and the whole reason for the flood to begin with, where the spiritual realm crossed over into the earthly realm, and any of our listeners just read Genesis chapter 6, and you'll be like, "Oh my goodness, I didn't even know this is in the Bible." So you can read that and see what we're talking about. But yeah, so wow, that's a whole nother really cool dynamic you brought up. I love that. So
And connected
Yeah,
to
that's
that,
cool.
I've never done any serious dive into the timeline if we're tracking things from Adam up through Abraham. What are we talking about time wise? And I'm finally researching by some of the sites the actual dates. It was a little over 100 years, about 105, 106 years after the flood, that the Tower of Babel took place and the nations were scattered to the four winds. So those people had just grown up with Grandpa Japheth telling them, yeah, we just lived through this. I helped build the boat and everybody died. And my dad did a sacrifice for all of us. There was only 6 of us at the time, plus grandma and grandpa. And this is where this came from. So, you have a proximity historically for this
Yeah.
story to spread both the flood and if there's a Halloween thing in there somewhere.
Yeah, wow.
That's cool.
And to think in 100 years they abandoned God that quickly too is
That's
mind-boggling.
mind-blowing to me.
Absolutely mind-boggling. Yeah. Yeah. So again, if you're listening, Genesis chapter 11 gets into Tower of Babel. And, if you ever have any questions, you can always put it in. Get a hold of us in the talk notes there. But wow, so what kind of mulligan can we come up with when it comes to Halloween? I mean,
Get rid
would
of
you
all the
do it
bad candy.
differently? Uh,
That's
Everything
a terrible
with peanut
idea.
butter and coconut, right?
Yeah,
Take
no
all the
coconut.
bad candy out of Halloween.
So, hey, while you're done with that, so I was listening to a healthy podcast, and they were talking about, what do you do if you're trying to raise your kids up healthy, right? And you don't want them to have candy because, again, we should all be having like 32 grams of sugar a day is like our max, right? And kids are even less. So you don't give them a bag of candy that's going to like, rot out their teeth in about a month. So what do you do? So this mom said they had, I never heard this. I thought it was a great idea. And again, this gets into, the fun stuff, I guess, and all that of Halloween. But so the kids had to leave I think they were allowed one piece of candy, but then, so they went out trick-or-treating and had all the fun, right? But they weren't allowed to eat all the candy. So they left their bag near the front door, and the switch witch would come that night. Isn't that cool? I thought that was a great idea. Play it into the Halloween thing.
Switch
So the
witch?
switch witch would come and take their bag of candy and switch it out for something better. And so they would get a toy, or they would get some healthy snacks or something like that in there, but something more valuable than candy, because candy is not, you should be eating it. And I was like, that is brilliant. So anyway,
I'm just not sure about the switch witch part of it,
Well,
the
yeah,
Christian thing.
Well, absolutely. I don't think this person was coming from a Christian perspective. They're coming from a health perspective. So that's why they did the switch witch, because I was like, but I thought that was cute. I was like,
Well,
that's a
I
cute
guess
way to do it.
I guess that's
So what
better
you're
than the
saying
house
is
that's
the
giving out
neighbor that
toothbrushes,
That's true.
right?
That's what I'm saying. So we're back to that. The neighbor that gave out the apples was actually the good guy. Is that what we're saying?
That's
Yes,
right.
he was.
Ultimately, this is true. Yeah.
So, can you think of a mulligan you take? I don't know. I'll be honest. I don't know if I would have done it different with our kids. Like I said, they choose to celebrate Halloween, so like, that's fine. When we as adults here too, without kids in the house, we'll still, trick or treaters come to the door. We get excited for them. We'll look at their costumes. We'll jump all into that and stuff like that. We just, so I don't know if I would change it. So I don't know.
I think it's okay to watch It's a Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. I think
That's true. That's a good one. We should watch that this week.
I think for me, I'd probably say the only thing I would probably have wanted to do a little bit better is as we were, going through celebrating. Because again, we didn't do any bad, evil costumes. We always made sure that they were, non-satanic and non-devilish, non-witchery, type of costumes. So that was the one rule we did have, just to make it more of a fun dress up kind of night. But I think the only thing I probably would like to have done better was just explain to my kids at the different ages that they were going out and trick-or-treating about the other side of what Halloween looks like for some people, more of just the spiritual realm of it a little bit, age appropriate kind of things, but just to give them a better understanding from a Christian perspective of that. That's probably the only thing I would have changed.
How about you, Barry? Anything different?
I think I would have been much more careful answering the door with a little one, like I mentioned before, because that,
Okay. Yeah.
that for years after that, when Halloween came around, I was like, no, I want nothing to do with this, which kind of helped us because, like I said, I didn't really want to celebrate. I think if anything, I wish I took a stronger stance because my mindset was the same as yours, Kenny.
Yeah.
And I don't like what's behind it. And I did do some research on it to think of the people that are being killed on Halloween as part of their
there's human
rituals.
sacrifices
Really disturbing to me. And in light of all that stuff that's been coming out of Hollywood with all these people in this sex trafficking ring, you're starting to say, oh my goodness, how big is this thing? And is it connected at all to the same types of belief systems that appear on Halloween? So I think I wish I took a stronger position and like, nah, kids, we'll put the candy out for people, but nah, we'll do something else. I think I wish I had done that. But since we downplayed it as much as we did, I think we did okay. And now that they're older, they do understand the darker side of the whole thing. It's not an issue. And these days, I don't know, since maybe 2012 when we had Hurricane Sandy come through, we haven't had Halloween the same in our neighborhood anyway. So we just leave a bucket outside, and the few that come, they take it and they go. So we don't really even see them anymore.
Oh, wow.
But it's just fewer people over time. So it's kind of worked
that
out.
was the year they postponed Halloween.
Yeah.
In New Jersey.
Yeah, you're right, because it was 2 days before. Wasn't it the 28th or 29th that it came in?
29th today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the funny thing is, as a culture, we could probably let it go. But I don't think the culture will let us because it's too big business. I mean, you're talking billions and billions of dollars.
Yeah,
so
right.
They're not going to let it go.
I think it's the fastest growing holiday financially.
Yeah. It's not driven by the culture. It's sort of driven by the money.
The other harvest color, the green one. Yeah.
Yes. So, any final thoughts, guys?
No, it's always great to hang with you guys and discuss different topics. It's fun to reminisce about some childhood stuff, even getting freaked out by your oldest brother. But it was good to get on here and talk a little bit and just bring up a holiday that a lot of people celebrate in different ways. And I think there are Christian perspectives to look at. There's worldly perspectives to definitely look at. From our lenses, we're all looking at it from a Christian perspective. So it's good to be able to talk through this and just see some different ways that we've handled it with our own families and our own lives of what we look at Halloween as.
Hey, we know everyone can use a second chance or a do-over, so take a mulligan. Try again. Thanks so much for joining with us today. Make sure you follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Like, click, and subscribe.